Pig. This is my little brother George. This is Mummy Pig. And this is Daddy Pig. Peppa Pig. Mr. Dinosaur is lost.
George's favourite toy is Mr. Dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
George loves Mr. Dinosaur. Sometimes George likes to scare Peppa with Mr. Dinosaur.
Too scary.
At supper time, Mr. Dinosaur sits next to George.
I beg your pardon? Was that you, George? Or was it Mr. Dinosaur?
Dinosaur.
At bath time, George shares his bath with Mr. Dinosaur.
Good night, Peppa.
Good night, Mummy.
Good night, George. And good night, Mr. Dinosaur.
When George goes to bed, Mr. Dinosaur is tucked up with him. George's favourite game is throwing Mr. Dinosaur up in the air
Whee!
and catching him when he falls back down.
Whee! Whee!
Peppa and Daddy Pig are playing drafts.
I win, Daddy.
Oh, well done, Peppa. George?
George, what's the matter?
Dinosaur.
George, have you lost Mr. Dinosaur?
George has lost Mr. Dinosaur.
Don't worry, George. We'll find Mr. Dinosaur.
It's a job for a detective.
Daddy, what is a detective?
A detective is a very important person who is good at finding things.
Me! I'm good at finding things.
All right, Peppa is the detective.
George, I'm the detective. I will help you find Mr. Dinosaur.
Maybe the detective should ask George some simple questions.
George, where's Mr. Dinosaur?
George does not know where Mr. Dinosaur is. The detective could try and guess where Mr. Dinosaur might be.
I know where he is. George always has Mr. Dinosaur with him in the bath. So Mr. Dinosaur is in the bath.
Mr. Dinosaur is not in the bath.
Oh. I know where Mr. Dinosaur is. George always has Mr. Dinosaur in his bed at night. See, that's where he is.
Mr. Dinosaur is not in George's bed.
Oh.
Maybe we should try the garden.
Yes, the garden. I was going to say that. Where is Mr. Dinosaur?
Mr. Dinosaur is very hard to find.
Oh, Mr. Dinosaur isn't anywhere.
George, you do love to throw Mr. Dinosaur in the air. I wonder if this time you threw Mr. Dinosaur just a bit too high.
There he is! I saw him first.
Well done, Peppa. You really are a very good detective.
Dinosaur.
George is so happy to have Mr. Dinosaur back again.
Whee!
Maybe it isn't a good idea to play with dinosaurs near trees.
Dinosaur.